Walk into any mall in America. Push open the door of a Sunglass Hut, a Lens Crafters, a Pearl Vision. Look at the wall. Ray-Ban, Oakley, Purcell, Prada, Chanel, Versace, Burberry, Ralph Lauren, Armani. It looks like a free market. It looks like dozens of brands fighting for your business. That is an illusion. Nearly every pair on that wall and the store you are standing in, and possibly the Vision insurance card in your wallet, traces back to one single company headquartered between Milan and Paris. The frames in your hand cost between $4 and $15 to manufacture. You are about to pay $600. Today we are going to expose how one Italian corporation took over the way the world sees and show you exactly how to buy quality eyewear without funding their empire. If you have shopped for glasses recently, you believe you are choosing between competitors. You weigh Ray-Ban against Oakley, you compare a Prada frame against a Versace frame and feel like a smart shopper picking the best brand for your money. Here is the truth. There is no competition between those names. They are all owned or controlled by the same corporation, a giant called Essilor-Luxottica. This one company owns Ray-Ban outright. It owns Oakley. It owns Purcell, Oliver Peoples, Costa, and Vogue. And the designer names you trust, Chanel, Prada, Versace, Burberry, Dolce & Gabbana, Ralph Lauren, Tiffany, Coach, Michael Kors, and Armani, do not make their own glasses. They simply rent their names to the same Italian company, which manufactures every pair in the same factories. So when you walk down the aisle comparing brands, you are not comparing competitors at all. You are comparing different labels printed by one manufacturer. This is not a small operation. Essilor-Luxottica employs more than 200,000 people, runs around 18,000 stores, and brings in over 26 billion euros every single year. But to understand how a single company captured an entire industry, you have to go back to a dead mountain town in Italy. The man who built this empire was an orphan. Leonardo del Vecchio was born in Milan in 1935. His father, a struggling street vendor, died 5 months before he was born, and his mother, unable to provide for the family, surrendered 7-year-old Leonardo to an orphanage when he was a boy. As a teenage apprentice in a metal shop, he lost part of a finger. In 1961, at the age of 26, he took free land offered by a depressed mining town called Agordo, high in the Italian Dolomites, and founded a small company called Luxottica. At first, he made tiny metal parts for other eyewear makers. Within a decade, he was building complete frames under his own name. Then, in 1988, he discovered the trick that would make him one of the richest men on earth. Every Italian fashion house had refused to put its name on something they considered a mere medical device. Then Giorgio Armani said yes. That single licensing deal taught Del Vecchio a lesson he would never forget. Stick a luxury logo on a piece of plastic, and people will gladly pay many times what it costs to make. Armed with that secret and freshly listed on the New York Stock Exchange, he stopped competing with his rivals. He started buying them, and the company that would swallow the entire industry was just getting started. What followed was one of the most aggressive buying sprees in business history. In 1999, Luxottica bought Ray-Ban, an American legend then so neglected it was selling for as little as $19 in gas stations. Luxottica shut down the cheap production, pulled the brand out of the discount bins, slowed the supply, and rebuilt it as a premium icon. Within 15 years, Ray-Ban alone was generating billions of dollars a year and had become the best-selling sunglass brand on the planet. Then it went after the stores. It had already bought Lens Crafters, the largest optical chain in North America. In 2001, it paid $653 million for Sunglass Hut and its thousands of mall locations. 3 years later, it absorbed Pearl Vision, Sears Optical, and Target Optical in a single deal. Suddenly, the company that made the glasses also owned the stores that sold the glasses. Think about how strange that is. Imagine if the company that built your car also owned every dealership, set the sticker price, and faced no rival lot down the street. That is exactly the position Luxottica engineered for itself in eyewear, one quiet acquisition at a time, while shoppers kept believing they were choosing between brands. Then, in 2018, came the move that completed the machine. Luxottica merged with the French lens giant Essilor, the largest maker of prescription lenses on Earth, in a deal worth roughly $50 billion. Now one company controlled the frames and the lenses. 3 years after that, it bought the European retail chain Grand Vision, adding more than 7,000 additional stores. But buying the brands and the stores was only half the plan, because there was one major competitor that refused to play along, and what happened to that company is the most chilling part of this entire story. That competitor was Oakley. Founded in a California garage by a man named Jim Jannard, Oakley had built sport sunglasses so popular they had pushed Ray-Ban aside and accounted for roughly a quarter of all sales at Sunglass Hut. But Sunglass Hut now belonged to Luxottica, and Luxottica demanded that Oakley cut its prices. Jannard refused. So Luxottica did something only a company that owns the stores can do. It pulled Oakley off the shelves. Every Sunglass Hut, every LensCrafters, every Pearle Vision simply stopped selling Oakley. With its biggest sales channel slammed shut overnight, Oakley's stock collapsed by about a third. Oakley fought back, even suing Luxottica over a lens coating patent, but it was bringing a knife to a gunfight. For 6 years, Oakley tried to survive by buying its own stores and its own rival brands, anything to escape the trap. It did not work. Finally, in 2007, beaten and out of options, Oakley surrendered and sold itself to Luxottica for $2.1 billion. Luxottica put the glasses back on the shelves and raised the prices. When a journalist later confronted the chief executive, suggesting Oakley had tried to compete, lost, and then been bought, the executive could only repeat that the two companies had merged. The journalist corrected him on the spot. That is what competition looks like inside this industry. You either sell to them, or you are removed from the shelf. Now you understand the trap. So the real question is, how much are you actually overpaying? In 2012, the news program 60 Minutes confronted the company directly. The chief executive admitted that more than 500 million people on Earth were wearing his glasses, and that the company had produced 65 million frames the year before. When asked about the markup, he would not give a number, but the reporter revealed it anyway. The glasses, she said, can sell for up to 20 times what they cost to make. Then came the whistleblowers. The man who originally founded LensCrafters toured the Chinese factories that supply most American frames. He found that excellent frames could be made for $4 to $8, and designer quality frames for about $15. First quality lenses, he said, cost about $1.25 each. When he was reminded that those same glasses sell in America for $800, his answer was blunt. He called it ridiculous, a complete rip-off, and said if that is not a monopoly, he did not know what was. Another former supplier, a man who once provided a fifth of all the frames LensCrafters sold, put it even more simply. There is no competition in the industry, not anymore. They bought everyone. They set whatever prices they please. He blamed federal regulators for falling asleep at the wheel and allowing every company to roll into one. By some estimates, that markup can reach 1,000%. But the most ingenious part of this machine is something most Americans never even notice. It is your insurance. The same corporation owns one of the largest vision insurance companies in America, a plan called iMed with roughly 50 million members. Think about what that means. When you use your vision benefits, your insurance steers you to an eye doctor who works in a store that sells you a frame. And the insurance, the store, the frame, and the lenses can all be owned by the very same company. They design the frame, they manufacture it, they own the brand or rent it from a fashion house. They distribute it, they sell it in their own store, they insure it through their own plan, and they approve their own prices for reimbursement. It is a closed loop, and you are standing in the middle of it, paying every step of the way. When American regulators reviewed the giant merger that created this company, they cleared it without conditions. concluding it would not reduce competition. Critics called that decision asleep at the wheel. So if the entire wall is one company and even your insurance funnels you back to them, are you doomed to overpay forever? No, it means you have to stop shopping like a consumer and start thinking like an auditor. Here is the good news, and it is real news. The empire is enormous, but it is not airtight. It has gaps you can drive a truck through, and almost all of them are online or sitting in plain sight just outside the mall. Your first and easiest escape is a company built specifically to fight this monopoly. Its founder was quoted around $800 to replace a single lost pair of glasses, more than he had paid for his phone, and the experience so outraged him that he started a company to sell quality frames with prescription lenses starting around $95, often made in the very same factories as the expensive brands. Your second option is even cheaper. There are online retailers selling complete prescription glasses starting under $10, shipped directly from the factory to your door, with tens of millions of pairs already sold. Third, skip the mall entirely and walk into a Costco or a Walmart Vision Center. Both sit outside the Luxottica retail web, and both routinely sell name brand frames and lenses for a third to a half of what you would pay at the chain stores. Fourth, when you visit a local independent optician, ask one simple question: which of these frames are not made by Luxottica? Their competitors are still out there if you ask for them, makers with names like Safilo, Marchon, and Marcolin, companies that produce frames for brands the giant does not control. And here is a tip especially valuable if you are over 55 because you buy glasses more often than almost anyone. Hunt for vintage Ray-Bans made before 1999, back when they were built by Bausch and Lomb in Rochester, New York. They carry a small engraving on the lens. They are heavier and sturdier than the modern injection molded versions, and they often last for decades. One warning: some discount websites that look independent are secretly owned by this same corporation, so a little research before you buy keeps your money out of their pocket. Leonardo Del Vecchio died in 2022. He was worth roughly $25 billion, one of the wealthiest men in the world. He famously did not wear prescription glasses himself and was photographed in sunglasses only once in his life. He built an empire on a simple bet that you would never notice that every brand on the wall was secretly his. For decades, that bet paid off because the entire system was designed to keep you comparing labels instead of asking who printed them. But you know better now. The next time you walk into that bright, clean store and a salesperson tells you the designer frame is worth $600, you will know it costs less than a restaurant lunch to make, and that the competitor on the next shelf came out of the same machine in the same factory under the same roof. The era of paying blindly is over, and the big brands are banking on you not noticing. Check the labels, ask who owns the brand, and never pay a luxury price for a piece of plastic that cost $8 to build. If you found this eye-opening, hit subscribe for more stories the corporations would rather keep hidden.